Hi, Dr. Jeter. This is Ariana Young, and this is my professional development plan reflection. I am just kind of doing a voiceover, a screencast of our assignment. So, I was invited to join this assignment with Johnny and Christina, and I'm super grateful to them for their invitation. I really am passionate about this topic, and they had already laid a strong foundation of ideas around some of their own experiences that they had at their school. So they have been doing a professional development for a while, I think, on restorative justice, and they have been working in affinity groups with the Peace Building Center, and they had noticed that there were conversations that people would have after the meetings that they wouldn't do maybe in a public setting, but with teachers that they viewed as perhaps like-minded, perhaps more racially homogenous teachers. They would have conversations and reflect about their experiences. Christina and Johnny described it as kind of reaffirming who they were and their identity. And so they really felt strongly that conversations about race are still very important. From my personal positionality, my school is, we don't have very many white teachers at my school. We have a few, and we have 0 white children. So I still think that I brought a unique perspective, because one of the things that I said is maybe when we have conversations about equity and race, I don't really see that there are underground conversations. And I think when you talk about like a black-white dynamic, our teachers are very much all on the same page. But then when you get into a more nuanced dynamic of Black and African immigrants, or Black and Hispanic, or Hispanic and Black teachers and Asian immigrants, I think that there's a lot more. I guess, a lack of comfort and more prejudice and bias that people exhibit. So, I agreed that I think it is still a conversation we need to have about race. And I think one of the things that I pushed for was that the conversation about race was not one-sided in the white-black dynamic, because I think that's often the conversation that we have. But there are other dynamics of race and other groups of people who are affected, and I think that it's important that we recognize how conversations about race for all teachers of all backgrounds are important to have, and it's important that we all stay humble and reflective throughout them. So that's kind of my background for why we chose this idea, and my personal contribution to that idea. So we talked a lot about our rubric that we had created, and they also mentioned the rubric that they have from their school community, and that, really connects with some of the readings that we did in Desimone, and talking about coherence in professional learning. So we really wanted to do something with that in mind that would involve a reasonable amount of time that lasted over a long period, and that would be affordable for people to access. And we wanted to be able to provide high quality resources that teachers would be able to use again and again and again. The more free, the better. So that was kind of our mindset as we began developing this educational plan. So we spent the first part of our rubric kind of explaining our word choice that we used, and then we created a 5-session plan. We have objectives that outline the purpose for each session. We start every session in kind of the same way. We have an introduction or an icebreaker or a team building activity. We establish norms, and then we kind of dive into our purpose and what we want the teachers to kind of pull out. And then we kind of end with an interactive activity. And the order may be mixed up a bit for each one, but we really try to provide options for choice so that teachers could have some control over their learning experience. We wanted it to be interactive. We wanted to try to find ways that multiple modalities and learning styles and personalities would be able to succeed. So like with the gallery walk, we had them choose an article, and then it was divided up, and then they were able to place sticky notes on areas where they agreed or something that was new or challenging, and they were able to have the silent reflection time after having a talk time previously with their table, and then concluding with more reflection and discussion, which really gives an opportunity for everyone to kind of be on the same page and learn from each other. Like if they didn't read that article, they have a chance to walk around while they're doing the gallery walk and read what other people have written, as well as share out in discussion. So, we also really wanted to make sure that we made the best use of our time. So we created homework assignments, because we all think that the professional learning experience is not just what they do in the session with us, but what they do in their classroom. So the homework journal assignment, and the reason why we said it's a journaling, it's really a time of reflection to think about whatever topic we covered the day before or the day of, and how they can implement that in their classroom. We were thinking that this would be like one a month. So they could think about, during the next month, like, how do I implement this? How can I change this? How can I, infuse this into what I'm teaching? So then it becomes practical, and we really emphasize that action piece. This isn't something you just show up to and you're done. You have to take what you learn, and we want to really encourage you to implement it and take action. So yeah, this is supposed to last over a semester, 5 different sessions. We want the teachers to be able to collaborate and reflect. We want them to implement it in their classrooms, and we really want these skills to affect student learning. We thought about how we would track this, and we kind of decided, in a realistic sense, we probably wouldn't exert that much control over teachers, because we all know what it feels like to be micromanaged. And so that wasn't something that was appealing to us. But we just wanted to be able to provide them with the resources for anyone who wants to learn, who wants to dive in deeper to the topics. Like, everything is available for them to do so, and to go back and reflect on it afterwards. So these ideas that kind of shaped our learning were formed by Putnam and Burko, and 2000, Guskey, 2002, and Dismoni, 2009. We used the rubric a lot to kind of influence how we developed our plan. We were really intentional about thinking about our objectives and our purpose for reading, and our purpose for each activity, and how that would eventually connect to our original, objective that we kind of discussed, that we really wanted them to be able to achieve, to feel more comfortable discussing race. Oops. One of my personal favorite sessions is the last one. I really liked the last one because this one I was able to infuse a lot of the learning that I had through the social justice topic paper, and we really discussed about multiculturalism. And I kind of want to explain this part here, because I know some of the other other students, colleagues had questions about it. So my whole idea was, we want to challenge the single story narrative, right? So like for Independence Day, for example, it's not necessarily this is to exclude any other narratives, but it's like, why do we only talk about these things? And what else could we talk about instead? And what could they bridge into, right? Because it's not necessarily about not discussing Independence Day, but if we're discussing Independence Day, maybe we should talk about Juneteenth and what that means. Or talk about how some parts of the country, some Americans, do not feel that Independence Day is a day of celebration that represents them. This does not negate that conversation. It's rather saying that we should expand that conversation into something more. Because we don't want it to be a tokenized, let's celebrate a Muslim holiday, let's celebrate a Hindu holiday. Because that's something that can minimize understanding and create stereotypes. So we really wanted to try to build into things that we are already doing, that students already are familiar with, and to expand those ideas to really challenge students and challenge teachers, and how they can make it no longer center Christmas, for example. What could we do instead? And why do we center it? And what conversations can we have instead or around it, without it being at the center? Like, who else can we make sure that their narrative is told? And that's kind of the purpose behind all of these things that we even mentioned down here, like the danger of a single story narrative. We were really intentional about giving teachers planning time. Another area I really liked was in session 4. We provided them with lessons that they could use in their actual classrooms. And I know as a teacher that would be really influential for me, so that I could actually use the time in my professional learning experience to create something that I can implement in my actual classroom. We read in Putnam and Burko 2000 that high quality PD is social, situated, and distributed amongst educators. So we really were intentional about planning engaging, interactive, purposeful, and hopefully fun and meaningful activities for teachers to engage in and to learn and to be part of. So thank you so much for your time. I hope you enjoyed our professional learning experience. Thank you.